Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
It is a legendary place to go and see racing action, but it is one that in its legacy in the early 2010s, it was known as the place where titles would be decided. Banger after banger after banger of title decider came through the hallowed corners of Interlagos, but it might be a case today in the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour that a championship can be decided. Just 16 points for Eduardo Radice to outscore Jacob Reed today, and the title will be going to Italy for the second time and for the first time in Eduardo Radice's iRacing Grand Prix Tour career. Welcome here to coverage on SimSpeed TV. My name's Jake Sperry. Dan van Zutphen is along with me for today's action with Daniel Yeaman in the director's chair for this one. But what a legendary circuit, Dan, we have for racing action. We know time and again this is, simply put, one of the only circuits that you can battle every corner side by side.
Oh, it's a fantastic track, isn't it? I always call this track a track for the aggressive driver, because there will be some points during the race where a driver will think, I have to go for this move, I have to go for that move. And at Interlagos, you can make such moves, which is absolutely amazing. And therefore, I think, Jake, like you said, we will have a banger of a race today here.
We certainly will. We take a look down here to the outskirts of Sao Paulo and this Interlagos circuit. 4.31 kilometers effectively in length, anti-clockwise, which often it gives a little bit of a difference compared to the clockwise style circuits. But three key places to work out passing here today. You've got the DRS over in towards the center S, turns 1 and 2. Then on the Retro Oposta to the Skida do Lago, turns 4 and 5. Then up through Ferradura over to the likes then of turn 8. The Essay corner is huge because Junsao at junction corner at turn 12, the last place to make a move if you do have that chance. And one of the few places which really highlights how important elevation change is to a racing circuit.
It most definitely is. It will be interesting, that elevation change, to see how that affects the racing as well. But talking about the track in itself, Jake, I just love the S sections, turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, where you can make a move, but it will be always risky. The track will get tight there. And again, like I said, if you have to make a move, you need to go for a move there, which can be tricky for some of the action and might not end always really well. So I'm curious how we'll see overtaking at those places today. And see also if we get a photo finish, because out of turn 12, it's a flat to the floor, straight line basically, left straight line, but you can take it flat. We might get some photo finishes here today, who knows?
It's going to be one where you're going to have to stay on the edge of your seat for racing that we have here. It is worth talking, though, about those championships and where we stack ourselves into in terms of this one. The iRacing Championship has 4 drop rounds attached to it, so with 724 points to chase down, Jacob Reed is going to need a lot of help to get by Eduardo Radice now at this stage of the season. But strengths of fields like tonight are really going to help in the long and short. Florian Kammeier into third now, dropping back with Volta-Lux and James Byrne fourth and fifth. George van Rensburg and Reynaldo Augusto are sixth and seventh, ahead of Paul O'Regan. Alex Hagland moving up to ninth, and Edward Apari-Ari in 10th. Let's take a look though at your SimSpeed Championship standings, because that's the championship we're talking about here tonight. It is 59 points between Eduardo Rodis and Jacob Reed. It stacks like this, Dan. If Eduardo Rodis wins, Jacob Reed has to have a top 5 finish in order to keep the championship alive heading to Portimao. A P2 for Eduardo Rodis. The job is simple for Jacob Reed. He has to finish above P9. Any other finish for Eduardo Rodis, P3 or lower, we head over to Portugal.
It doesn't matter how experienced you are, but pressure will always be there if a championship fight is on, which makes maybe thinking about mistakes at, for example, this track for Eduardo Rodis or Jacob Reed, which can turn the championship completely on its head.
It absolutely can. Now, we weren't able to bring you coverage last time out at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, which was the 20th round of the championship, but it was 3 straight wins for Jacob Reed, getting it done by 16 over his main title rival, Eduardo Rodis. Alex Hagland jumping up onto the podium ahead of Mario Bodlosh, and James Byrne finishing up in 5th, which jumps him up into 3rd in the championship. Volta-Lux would be 6th ahead of Jeffrey Lawler, with George van Rensburg, Florian Kammeier and Edward Apari-Ari picking up the final points playing position. But again, pole position and fastest lap belonged to Jacob Reed. But what about today? 71 laps of racing action. You look down the order, Louis Valentin there, Guillaume de Rugna making his first start in a while there. 14.
No, you're Jacob Reed. It's not a great statistic to have playing in your head, and he needs to eliminate that thought and see what he can do his best, see if he can do his best on Brazil. You know, Brazil, it's a technical track. Not everybody likes it. Sometimes you love it, sometimes you hate it, and maybe this is just one of those tracks for Jacob Reed that he doesn't really seem to fit so well at, and maybe it's a chance, the perfect chance for Eduardo Rodis to cut back on that championship.
Yep, and critically, this was his first ever circuit. He picked up a victory in the Grand Prix World Tour for Eduardo Rodis, so this is a place of happy memories to come to, and it would be very apropos if he could go and get the title sorted here today. Qualifying is currently underway, but we are running the tyres here in iRacing, the C2, the C3 and the C4, in direct line with what they're running in 2025 Formula One World Championship, which means that the soft, the medium and the hard are in play, and we are expecting a 2-stop strategy with a very quick pit lane.
See if that 2-stop strategy will have any effect. Maybe we can see a 1-stop strategy. It's going to be difficult, but at Interlagos it can be done, although it's got a lot of corners, so it might be difficult. Maybe some exotic strategy, 3 stops from the back, see how that plays out. But everything can really happen in terms of strategy here in Brazil. We've seen it happen in F1. Maybe it will happen here today.
Maybe it will. 19 drivers. We've split 4 times in terms of getting our field ready. And Michel Rudeau, second and final lap here in qualifying, crosses the line, and that one won't count either. So we'll have to go based on his iRating in 18th position. He was the last car on track, and so some surprises in qualifying in stalls. So the field is now set, and we can run through that starting grid order for you here today at Interlagos. And it is the number 3 in his rookie season, James Byrne, who will get himself up on pole position with a 1:10.037 as we take a look at the practice results that have come through on screen. We'll get the qualifying ones up in just a moment. Just 16 thousandths ahead of Eduardo Rodis, the number 1 car in the field. Jacob Reed is just behind in 3rd position. It is then Florian Kammeier and Volta-Lux. Kammeier has been on a poor patch of form recently, so that 4th will be great for him, as Dennis Branch will be 6th in qualifying. It's then a Swedish row 4 4 of the grid, as Alex Hagland has Leopold Staneros for company in 8th place, as Lyle Pinar gets, I think, his best qualifying of the season in 9th, and Edward Apariari will round out your top 10. Just ahead of Mr. Top 10, Paul O'Regan, who's had over 45 top 10 finishes without a single top 5. He's 11th, with Sebastian Rekov in 12th, and then it's Mark van Dalen in 13th, with Brad Newman 14th, running because the time zone suits him now in terms of this late end to the season. Ken Nielsen and Philip Kuhnhart, the last two to set a representative lap time. Your final 3 drivers are the number 12 of Jeffrey Lawler, the 17 of Michel Rudeau, and the 18 of Balazs Galliard in that 19th position on the grid. And you can see them there that just put themselves into position and get themselves ready. They now start the 2-minute procedure to get themselves on the grid, and if they can't get on the grid, they can elect to start this race from pit lane. And with the lesser numbers here today of 19 rather than the 22 to 24 that we've seen in previous races, it is going to mean that traffic is a little bit less likely to be found here today. But on a circuit that's only 70 seconds in length, you are going to see lap times be very, very critical. And they don't use here, as part of the iRacing scan, the front 2 rows of the grid, which means that those starting in 5th position on back are actually on the flat for this start, whereas you look at being on the front row, you've got much more of an uphill start to this race. So that could be a critical moment to keep in mind the start of this one, on who bogs down off of the start. Those nearer the back have a downhill launch then on this start-finish straight and will have the ability to make that run. And what a great look this is then, down to see just how much elevation there is on the main straight itself as they line up by the finish line. James Byrne then, who is looking to cement 3rd place in the championship over Florian Kamar and Volta Lux, will be looking at Eduardo Rodis and Jacob Reed, the two scrapping it out for the title and thinking, I've got nothing to lose. Almost everybody on medium tyres. We just wait for Eduardo Rodis, who makes the call to go to soft. Now that is a big, bold strategy at a circuit where he needs it. Lights on here at Interlagos, lights out, and away we go. And Rodis bogs down horribly off of this start. James Byrne with a stormer as he goes through. Kamai goes nowhere, so Dennis Branch will move up into the top 5. Rodis covers off Jacob Reed, going through the centre S for the first time, but critically, it's a clean start except for the back as a couple cars run off. That looks like Balazs Galliard, who's gone off a little bit.
Number 19, Philip Kuhnhart, going really slowly there at the back. The red car, this is Brad Newman, the Australian driver, also had contact, was involved. Oh, we see a car without a front wing and without a rear wing as well. Ken Nielsen, the Canadian driver, needing to return to pit lane. Undoubtedly, can he even keep that car on track without his main wings? It's incredible. Needs to be very careful there if he won't want to be collected in an incident, because there are faster drivers on the back. But it's still James Byrne in P1, but most crucially Eduardo Rodis, after that bad start, did keep his place. Behind him now Jacob Reed, but can he capitalize on that soft tyre? Can he take over the lead and create an even bigger gap to his championship rival?
Well, you'd certainly think that Eduardo Rodis will need to use that soft tyre and use it very quickly here in this race to build himself the margin that he wants. He's the only driver who's gone to it and immediately pulls over to the outside, trying to go and get the move done at the centre S. Doesn't quite manage it out there on circuit, but I am noticing here that Eduardo Rodis has gone to the medium downforce package. James Byrne on the high downforce package is going to lose out. Look at him, he got monstered on the straight.
Oh wow, he does make use of that medium package, and really, why wouldn't he? He is now in clean air. He can make use of that soft tire, and he can create a gap and just drive away like a real champion could, and see if he can create a gap. And again, not only to James Byrne, but also Jacob Reed. And Jacob Reed now has a car in between where he needs to get, which is going to be really tricky for his race. But main thing for Jacob Reed is now stay patient and see if your own strategy can work out.
Now, when they cross the line for lap 3, the drag reduction system will be allowed to open. That will give an extra 80 brake horsepower along the straights here, and that could be critical in deciding how this race will go. Lap 3, they tick over to here on 71, and some critical good starts. Lyle Pina up 2 spots then off of the get-go of this one. Mark van Dalen's done well. Michel Rudeau up 4 spots in this one. Radice with a 12.9, setting the fastest lap of the race with that pass, and already outside of that 1 second window for DRS to activate. It was on. They're going through, heading, and James goes around straight away, and through will go a whole slew of drivers. How he kept that out the barriers is beyond me.
That's a Max Verstappen reincarnation there. He did the same almost 10 years ago now, but in the wet. But Byrne keeping it on track, most crucially, maybe feeling the pressure a little bit. The man who started on pole position now in fight with the midfield, Pinar, maybe was eyeing up a move for the outside there, but James Byrne now needs to just get himself together once more, see if he can push towards the field and see if he can do better. But that's a really tough pill to swallow for James Byrne.
Oh, that's wide by Lyle Pina, and now he's going to be so slow up through Junsao, and now heading through the Archibancadas and the Skidados boxes. And so now here will come Dennis Branch, looking to pick one up with a bit of pace up over the top of the crest. And now there's no slipstream there for James Byrne, so it's 3 wide into turn 1. A big lock up behind as well, as the likes of Leopoldson Eros tries to go through, cuts the nose off there on Lyle Pina, and suddenly Mark van Dalen wants a way through. Behind him, Sebastian Rekov and Edward Apariari, who's well up there in the championship looking for a top 10. Balazs Galliard has come down into the pits then, and it's a long stop for him, so it looks like this will be a front wing change for him as he'll look to get back out and going again. Over 10 seconds, 10.6 as he goes, but a crazy start to this race.
Oh, I'm just loving his action. It's the first time commentating. I'm already a huge fan of this series and what action we have here today. Those DRS zones using on Interlagos being utilized beautifully here for the action as we switch over to the Mercedes colors. This is Jacob Reed in P2, Walter Lux, the Australian driver, in P3. Jacob Reed obviously promoted to second place, and does Eduardo Radice go in pit lane? No, that's just the general line these Formula cars take, but Jacob Reed will be happy after Byrne has spun, of course, because this will inch him closer to Eduardo Radice. However, the man in P1 just at the fast lap again, but Reed now under attack. Walter Lux again, the Austrian driver, probably wants to overtake Jacob Reed, and Reed won't be happy with that. But on the inside, Walter Lux can't quite make the move under the brakes, and he goes wide. Reed now has to give up that position, and he's back in P3, Jake.
Yeah, and the difference, mate, you can see on the top right of your screen of the championship and how they look. It is 69 championship points, the gap. Remember, it's got to be 76 championship points, with tiebreakers favouring Jacob Reed, even though he's got less wins at the moment. So he's going to look around and think, how am I going to get these points and how am I going to claw it back? Volta looks with that move very comfortably now, 3rd place in the championship. And so the engineer over at Avia Race Tech, Volta looks, gets one over on the data scientist, Jacob Reed.
Going to be interesting what Jacob Reed is feeling right now, because he is in the dirt here. Not everything is working with him. Yes, he got that P2, but now he's back to P3, and now again needs to maybe go and think about all the strategy options he has in play to see how he can get closer to P1, his championship rival. This is Leopold Steneras, the Swedish driver. Behind him, Dennis Branch, the American driver, currently in P8, driving the number 6 Mercedes Formula 1 car. But again, he is Mark van Dalen. There goes Mark van Dalen up his inside, and there goes Mark van Dalen, already passed, but an off track. He goes off track, and it's a switchback for the American driver, but Van Dalen sticks with it, and so he has it inside, and Mark van Dalen completed the move, the Dutch driver, up to P8.
Yeah, he's locked it up though to SA, and now here at the Pinarino, it's going to be very tough to hold. Branch had a run and he gets the door slammed shut, and that will bring Edward Apariari and the likes into play. So Lyle Pienaar in the middle of this too is just about going to find a line and hold that steady. But Mark van Dalen's had one podium in his iRacing Grand Prix Tour career. That was at Long Beach last year, and so he'll be looking at trying to build some solid points as he works up the order. Jacob Reed back through now into second place ahead of Walter Lux, but they are bringing a second Swede into the fight right now, or the first Swede if you want to call it in this field, because Alex Hagland is waiting. Brad Newman retires from the race.
Beautiful to see all the fights in the midfield, because the midfield is so close together. Jacob Reed back in P2, Walter Lux in P3. Something has happened to Walter Lux, or is it just the pace advantage that Jacob Reed has found in this race? 7 laps we have already driven. We need quite a few laps to go, but so far Jacob Reed is making the best of his position that he is currently in. Alex Hagland in P4, like Jake said, maybe can overtake Walter Lux. He has some gap to go, but it's definitely a possibility, which would make this a proper three-way fight. But the Swedish driver now losing a little bit of time in that third sector. Currently this little group stable as it is as they head in lap 8. Alex Hagland on board now, going to start his 8th lap of this Grand Prix, nearly touching 310, 311 there, kilometer. Car tops out as well, which is incredible to see here in Brazil in that DRS zone. Double slipstream for Alex Hagland, currently still in P4.
Yeah, trying his best as Florian Kammerer has lost the place to James Byrne. So Byrne now back into 5th place. Looks then in 3rd, having to be very patient at this moment. Knows that he's made one move on Jacob Reed, but Jacob was able to take it straight back along the main straight, and I'm looking at the downforce packages again. Lux is on a high downforce, Jacob Reed is on a medium downforce package, so it's going to be naturally more difficult to make that pass, because you see a straight bevel of the rear wing done as they go through for Jacob Reed, rather than that curved bevel that you see on the back of Walter Lux there, which indicates the high downforce package.
Oh, it's so interesting that drivers can make these little adjustments, crucial adjustments in your race. Eduardo Radis can use that medium downforce to his full potential. Jacob Reed as well, but he's not in the slipstream. But because Walter Lux does have that high downforce setup, he does have less straight line speed than Jacob Reed, which will compromise his overtaking opportunities on the long straight here at the Interlagos circuit. So it's going to be interesting, and even see if Walter Lux will make a move for P2, because maybe he knows I can just sit back, relax, save a bit of tires, see if I can overtake Reed with saving my tires, see if he has the better strategy.
Yeah, 7 kilometers an hour, the difference on the straight between Jacob Reed and Walter Lux. They head up now into Ferradura, and now looking in towards the SA corner, this small flick right that brings this very tough middle sector that is made to punish the tyres through each and every single corner. Reed now 7.2 seconds, 7.5 behind Eduardo Radis, but we know that Eduardo has to go on to the medium tyres at some point in the course of this race. The soft tyres, traditionally when you're trying to go and build it out, it's okay to have the soft tyre early on, but traditionally you will want that soft tyre in the latest available opportunity when you've got the least amount of fuel in the car, so it can use the tyres to its fullest potential.
He's choosing track position, because that's what he really does. If he goes to the medium while the other goes to the soft, he has track position over Jacob Reed. But does track position mean so much here when the straights are so long and there are 2 DRS zones at the circuit? I am not sure, but Radius in any case choosing for the track position, which will be very interesting. I'm also very interested if you might not see a cheeky one stop. Does someone go over to that hard tire compound? Maybe this is Mark van Dalen currently in front of the American driver Dennis Branch. We saw him make an overtake just a few laps ago around the outside of turn 4, currently still ahead of this group in P8. Crucially, no dirty air, so his tires can relax as he goes a little bit wide in that tricky S section, and he doesn't need to look too much in his rear view mirrors, because then you will be driving backwards. Instead, or forwards. And that's what Mark van Dalen wants to do.
4 different drivers of 4 different nationalities. Mark van Dalen and Dennis Branch, by the way, tied on points in the SimSpeed Championship with 13 championship points each, which puts them 21st and 22nd overall in the standings as they go. And there you can see a little look down as it would stand. Dennis Branch would be behind, by 2 championship points to Mark van Dalen. Still 2 points off of Nick Burke, who is the gatekeeper to the top 20, with Jeffrey Lawler down there in 19th and today running in 16th, looking to try and jump up. Top 10 score championship points as they run through, and currently holding patterns emerging over the course of this run. Everyone's settling down into rhythm, realising they're a bit stuck, they can't quite find the moves that they need to, so settle down, work out your strategy, and hope that the offset by the time you reach the first pit stop is going to make a big difference.
We're talking about Jacob Reed having a real shot at the championship here, but also Walter Lux just 1 point behind Jacob Reed, and 3 points behind that is James Byrne. So the entire top 3 right now having a real shot at the championship, and especially Reed and Walter Lux. Especially Walter Lux might just want to overtake Reed as soon as he can, because those are points as well. If he finishes in front of Reed, he can also take this championship as much as Reed can, but they still have Eduardo Radiz in P1 with not a pretty huge gap, because it can still be driven down, but with a gap that can be broken down in any way.
Yeah, 13 sixes from Jacob Reed, a 12.8 for Eduardo Radiz, so that was 0.8 of a second on that last lap. Volta Lux, of course, looking to hold his 3rd place in the championship, with James Byrne and Florian Kammeyer having good runs at the moment. They can see the difference, that those tyres really aren't going off here today around Interlagos, and some would call that surprising out there. It is very blustery, it's a headwind in towards turn number 1 today, gusting at 26 kilometers an hour. They'll have a tailwind on the Heta Posta as they'll run to the Ski de Lago, but the track temperature is only 31 degrees. It's very cool for this time of year at Interlagos.
It is very cool for this time in Interlagos. See if that will have any effect future on the race. But I probably need to put in my contact lenses, because I just mentioned that Walter Lux is 1 point behind Jacob Reed. He's 101 points behind Jacob Reed. I saw the 2 as a 3, so ignore my comment I just made. But in any ways, this championship fight is still very much going on between Reed and Raiders, and Walter Lux probably knows it. 20 degrees here, like Jake said, but a 31 degrees track temp, if I'm not mistaken, which is pretty high.
It is, and it is dropping out there at the moment, because we are in sim time, heading towards 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So this track is only going to get cooler as this race progresses, and so it will make the medium tyres a little bit easier later on. It will make the soft tyres lightning fast at the end of these races. Lap 13 here, and these 2, Reed and Lux, will actually be quite happy about the pace they're both having at the moment here, Dan, because they have dropped Alex Hagland now to the tune of a 1.5 seconds. And speaking of dropping, there goes a couple places as we take a look at this scrap going on right now between Paul O'Regan and Jeffrey Lawler, who is about 10 seconds back. In front of him, Sebastian Rekov, 3-car group with Michel Rudeau currently at the front of this one, and now under pressure along the run of these flicks left, because this is where the German wants to get by the Frenchman.
Interesting battle this, but they don't want to fight too hard, because the tires will absolutely get eaten up here at the circuit of Interlagos. You're already in dirty air, it's already a twisty, turny track, and if you then take outside lines, take inside lines on the rubber, on the off track, then you will get more tire wear, and the safest option is a DRS move, maybe for Reco here. No, thinks the better of it, stays behind Michael Rodot now, and maybe in the corner, he's just eyeing up a move, but he's just not close enough to take that P12 over from Rudoud, and so he will probably stay behind in this technical S section, but behind in P14. Paul O'Regan also on that medium tire. Does he have something to say about this fight? Of course he does. He's only 2 tenths behind. Maybe a move for the inside. Little lockup for Rudoud does cover up that inside, and so stays P12. But is fighting and is a little bit losing time. Jeffrey Lawler on the soft tire compound. Don't think has made a pit stop, but maybe he can make up some time and see if he can join this fight. Lawler has stopped, I hear now, so he can maybe definitely catch this group, especially if these guys keep fighting, Jake.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul O'Regan has only retired from the iRacing Grand Prix Tour races. He started on one occasion in his career. He has been classified as a finisher in every other one. I can confirm Ken Nielsen has also retired officially from the race, so we're down to 17 runners here in this one at Interlagos. So it goes to show you it's a very tough race, because the driver with the most experience, the most starts in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, loses out in this race. As here comes Rekov at La Ranchina and trying to get it done at Ferradura. Not quite there. Rekov was having a look, but Michel Rudeau very happy to stamp down on the throttle and say, you're never passing me at turn 6 out here at Interlagos. It's a nigh on impossibility.
Wants to keep that P2. And look, the outside line for the man just behind Paul O'Regan. Down the outside, you can't make a move there, you can't have the momentum there, and so they slot back in a position they were just last lap. And Paul O'Regan again eyeing up for a move. I touched on Jeffrey Lawler just again a lap ago. He's already 7.7 seconds behind. If they keep this fighting up for a couple of laps, then maybe Lawler can join in as well. Look, down to the inside. Reco goes. Sebastian makes that move. It makes the move stick. He and maybe has the. I'm not quite sure if the DRS detection point is in favor of the man in P12. It doesn't look to be. So
look at that.
Rico needs to defend
no!
now. Oh, contact!
Just like that, Sebastian Rekov sees the suspension collapse for Michel Rudeau, and that is all about the closing speed differences that they have. Both mired in the gravel and both out of the race. Paul O'Regan profiteers, but my goodness me, that's what we expect with two different downforce packages in play.
You could almost see it coming. This fighting just wasn't coming to an end, and now, well, Jake, it has come to an end as we see the race replay here, and it's it's just both cars not knowing they are turning into each other, and suddenly they hit each other, both surprised undoubtedly, but it's race over nonetheless.
Look on board then from Michel Rudeau's perspective. The door comes across, and there's just a lack of understanding of how much one car width is. So Rudeau had screamed to the outside, and then contact there at the very highest, echelon of speed. You cannot afford to have too much of that. Very similar done to what happened between Vettel and Leclerc in Brazil about 3 or 4 years ago.
You did read my mind. I was just about to come up with that, but very similar, as this is the start. Philip Koenraad, and a replay of the start. We saw a lot of chaos, and what happened to the German who was slow at the beginning of that start. Can't quite see in the replay. Oh, he just had to avoid all of the chaos, Jake.
Yeah, it just looked like there between Brad Newman and Ken Nielsen that they both just had to check it up on the start of this one. This is Brad Newman's perspective then. So he was looking to the inside. That's not going to work because Edward Apariari there was slow. So you're having to figure out where's the angle, and he paints himself into a corner.
Yeah, he's been hit from behind, it looks like it, Brad Newman, the Australian driver, and this is the replay again. Has he been hit, or has he just locked the rear brakes? I think, no, he has. He has. Oh, wow.
So Jeffrey Lawler, that's why he's coming early for a front wing change, because he's had that knock, and that certainly hurts. So Jeffrey Lawler off the start, not making friends here. He won't be on too many Christmas card lists with that. Bang! Overcooks it into the opening section. Very difficult when you've not set a qualifying lap time to work out just how slow they're going to bottleneck and funnel through the centre S.
It's always you always need to be careful at the start. But it seems that Jeffrey Lawler, like you said, Jake, just wasn't prepared for the drivers. I had to go that slowly into the first corner, and that's always just the classic first lap starting incident you can see. And at Interlagos, normally a starting incident at turn 1 happens. It's quite a slow corner. You have cold tires, cold brakes. You can lock up easily. So it's almost an incident waiting to happen, but you obviously hope it doesn't. As we now watch to the leader, if I'm not mistaken, Radis has a gap from 13 seconds, dominantly driving away right here, but he is on the softs. Bear in mind, this gap can be driven down if Jacob Reed gets to the soft tires, and Eduardo Radis will take the medium tires. But the Italian driver currently maybe not feeling so much pressure because, well, his gap is pretty comfortable behind.
He has dropped off compared to his fastest lap of a 1:12.4. He's now in the 1:13.2, so he's done a 1:13.2 for the last 4 laps. So that shows you the consistency value he's got on these soft tyres. On the mediums, it's consistent 13.5s to 13.7s from Jacob Reed. He just still can't match it, even though there's been a hefty amount of drop-off. There's not been as much drop-off on the medium tyre by the looks of things, Dan, but the key is that soft tyre, even though it is dropping off, it's still a better race tyre at the moment than what Jacob Reed's got underneath him.
Almost definitely. You need to absolutely make sure, if you're Eduardo Radis, to make the most of it. Hit every apex, hit every traction zone, every turn in you make with this Formula 1 car. You have to absolutely nail it. Otherwise, you might get in trouble, because every second, every tenth, every millisecond counts in the end of the day. When we had 17 laps, when we've completed the strategy system, all the stops are finished, you have to make the most of your tire strategy and the laps in between that.
4.2 seconds for Edward Apariari. This is the first, I would say, quote-unquote, real pit stop of the race. This will be on strategy for Edward out there in the number 10 car. So leaving this long pit lane through turn 3, you exit and merge back out onto the Heta Posta. It might be the longest pit lane in all of sim racing for exit out there to try and get back out onto circuit. We've still got to wait for the likes of Yas Marina to find its way onto iRacing before that takes the mantle over. But Edward Apariari now back out and away in 13th, behind Jeffrey Lawler by about 8 seconds, but critically you'd argue a full stop ahead. So I would say he's doing a very good job at this moment by comparison to where he wants to be, getting out early, looking for an undercut.
He's confident isn't the radius. We touched on it earlier in this race. Jacob Reed not really comfortable on this track, and I think that is starting to show. Walter Lux can keep up, the man that is 101 points behind in the championship. He can keep up. That doesn't mean I'm saying that Jacob Reed is driving slowly, but he just doesn't find the pace when he's going to drive, when he's driving at the circuit Interlagos, at this Brazilian circuit. Beautifully, but quite difficult for Jacob Reed. And maybe Walter Lux can, like I touched on before earlier in this race, he's probably just saving tires. He knows I can use Jacob Reed, stay in the slipstream, stay with him, and maybe, just as an outside chance, I can get that P2 at the end of the race.
And speaking of, James Byrne has caught the back of Alex Hagland as well, so that's for 4th and 5th, and there they are right now. And James now trying to work with the slipstream and the toe, but he is going to get a lot of wake going through the opening couple of corners here. We talk about dirty air being, well, the biggest bane of racers out there, and you're having to work through every corner. You get hit by about half a second's worth. You can't close up that gap, and there you see the difference on the straight, about 4 or 5 clocks now the difference. Lau Pinar then, the South African, jumps in and makes his first stop of the race, and so slowly you're going to start seeing them tick in, one after another after another. The pit window open as Paul O'Regan also comes in, no chance, out of Ferradura into the SA, and now down into the Pinarino.
Swedish driver definitely looking in his rear view mirrors now, because the American driver James Byrne is still there in second gear right now, third gear. Maybe he could make a move into turn 12, but it's too ambitious. He does have a beautiful DRS to work with in a bit, and will that then be the key for an overtake for that fourth place? Who has managed his tyres best? Is it Alex Hagland, or will it be James Byrne, who goes into the pit lane first and now goes for a change of tyres?
Well, James Byrne, needing to make that call, realises he can't get by on the straight, so he's going to have to use strategy to make that pass, and he'll have to look out at where he's going to come out in comparison. So looks remaining close. Track position is going to be very important coming into the pits. Mark van Dalen also jumps in then and looks for a stop, but for the moment it's Jacob Reed, the two-time iRacing Grand Prix Tour champion, the reigning champion, and right now driver on the back foot in this championship, still having to keep himself steady through the middle sector.
Alex Hagland, like we touched on early in this race, could catch this group, but now has fallen off quite a bit. 5 seconds is the gap now to the Austrian driver named Walter Lux. See if Hagland can maybe work with Byrne after their first round of strategy to see if they can catch up, because if these cars start fighting, they will lose time. But championship hangs in the air for Jacob Reed, and I think Walter Lux again knows that. Former F2 driver Emil Bernstoff, 7th in the standing, part-time driver, not here today, but maybe he can keep up his top 10 spot in, well, maybe the rest of the season. See if he will be there for the upcoming rounds. Emil Bernstoff now focus back to the race. Walter Lux in P3, 7 points behind now is James Byrne. So he just came in, James Byrne, crucial, Jake. He gets the jump on Alex Hagland when he pits.
Yep, so he'll be looking to jump to 4th, and that will be 12 championship points by comparison to where he is right now in 7th, which is 6. So that would be a gain of 6, and that would put him just 1 point behind Walter Lux, heading over towards Portimao for the next round of the championship. Lyle Pinar, who is out of the pit, still has Dennis Branch for company, who has pitted, and Branch with a good run doesn't quite get enough. Needed 100 extra meters to start making that look down the inside to making that happen. I will note though, Eduardo Rodis on the soft has gone a lot longer than we expected him to on this first stint. He has kept those tyres in a wonderful window to work with, and he's outlasted most of the field on medium compound tyres, which indicates to me that those softs have the ability to go longer than people expect them to, as Alex Hagland now hits pit lane.
Hagland, see where he ends up. Just touched upon his championship fight. As we see, I think that's yes indeed, Mark van Dalen, the Dutch driver, wanting to get by the Hungarian in P13. Oh, that's a bold move around the outside. He will need to complete the move, and he already has. The Hungarian driver, Balázs Galyar, knows he's not faster than Mark van Dalen, doesn't see any point in fighting, and so loses that place, and Mark van Dalen promotes himself up to P14, the unlucky number. See if he can get rid of that unlucky number 13 spot in the race so far. Paul Regan in P12 currently, as we see a replay of something has happened in lap 23 with Mark van Dalen. Oh, has he spun? Oh, he's lost the car. He's lost the car, Jake.
Yeah, he was so heavy over the inside curb that it completely disrupted the underside of the car, and we talk about it a lot. These cars run with ground effect, and because of that, you need as much grip as you can on the under tray, as in comes second and in comes third. Jacob Reed and Eduardo and Walter Lux at the same time. Look at the scrap they have coming off of the pits. Jacob Reed is able to win that battle, also in his Florian Kamar, and look out for James Byrne, because he's trying to get up to speed, setting fastest lap after fastest lap, trying to hunt these two down and thinking, right, they're in sights and the podium's still on the cards.
This is the time for James Byrne to see what he can do in this Brazilian race. James Byrne has the better tyres, has hot tyres compared to Jacob Reed and Walter Lux, whose tyres are cold. Their grip won't be optimal, but the grip that James Byrne has is optimal. You can see visually the American driver gaining time on Walter Lux now, and Walter Lux is now looking in his rear view mirrors. I have to do the best I can to keep that DRS in DRS range, because Jacob Reed 5 tenths, 6 tenths in front now, because if he doesn't have that DRS, then for sure he can be overtaken by James Byrne. This will be a fight for third spot in this race. Crucially, maybe James Byrne can now, with the DRS open, overtake and move to the inside on the center. It's brave on the brake for James Byrne. No, thinks the better of it, maybe in the next DRS zone.
Eduardo Rodis has come in, made the stop, come out, and is still 13 seconds ahead of Leopold Steneros, who is yet to come in, the only driver yet to pit at the moment in this race. Rodis now out on a set of medium compound tyres, so this is where he's going to have to pay the Pied Piper back, knowing that he's going to be on this strategy of medium tyres for the foreseeable future. Jacob Reed knows this is the time he's got to start chasing down, so too Walter Lux, because they'll be looking at this going, well, I need this strategy to sit down and be as good as I can. In comes Balázs Gallia then for a pit stop, but Leopold Steneros, look at the difference between old medium tyres and then the soft tyres that are brand new on Jacob Reed, Walter Lux and James Byrne. It's night and day. Look at that, 6 tenths in the middle sector.
Oh wow, will he come in? Leopold Steneros, yes, he will come in. You can see driving his line that he will come in, and he has to come in, otherwise he will hold up this group and, like you say, Jake, not get too many Christmas cards at home.
Yes, so makes the call, comes in for the stop, and now will look to switch tyres or potentially go on to a second set of mediums. Is in the box now. Time spent, it's going to be about 4.4 seconds, and moves onto the soft compound tyre. Will fall behind Florian Kammeyer. It's going to be close between him and Edward Apari-Aryi as he leaves pit lane. He will be ahead of EOA in the number 10, and so that will mean that the field is cycled, and it's 7th place for Leopold Steneros at this moment. So one round of stops scored itself complete, and the chance now to start thinking about how the middle of this race is going to pale by comparison to the racing action that is needed in the late stages of this race. We are firmly in the thralls of strategy.
Steneros taking 6 points currently, being P7 currently on the grid if it finishes like this. But like you say, Jake, this is going to be all about strategy. We've had some fighting, we've had some fun, but the field spread is also going to get a little bit bigger, and so naturally as a driver you're going to start thinking more about this race. The adrenaline of the start has calmed down, your heartbeat has gotten slower, and now you're thinking about all the possibilities you can achieve, you can make to promote yourself up a few more positions, and if it's in Jacob Reed's hands, maybe get P1 back. But 14.8 seconds is the gap. Eduardo Rodis isn't losing much as well. Well, 4 tenths now, 3 tenths now, so he has lost quite a bit, but it's not extremely much.
No, definitely not at the same rate as we saw at the start of the race, where he was taking a consistent 8 tenths of a second out of Jacob Reed. Jacob Reed can only take back 4 tenths on that last lap, and they will have 2 pieces of lap traffic to get through by the time they get to Eduardo Rodis at the front. So this has certainly paid off in space, and it's well pointed out as well in YouTube chat that it's very much the old Jordan Gronkowski strategy from a couple of seasons ago. Go on to a soft compound tyre to start, work the medium somewhere in the middle of the race, and you've got the gap to basically just manage the tyres as you go through. Another fastest lap from James Byrne, so they are turning the crank at this moment to say, look, we're gonna have to go quicker than this if we want to chase it down. But again, another 4 tenths, and James Byrne stuck, unable to close down that margin of about half a second.
Now he needs to keep a cool head. He did have a good strategy, and maybe he just wanted to get the position that's currently being held by Walter Lex. And now he also needs to think, what am I going to do right now? Is it better for myself to stay behind Walter Lex, save a little bit of tires for the end of this stint, and perhaps overtake Walter Lex with an undercut or an overcut? As we see here, another fight in the midfield. Dennis Branch is your Formula 1 car behind. In front, South African Lily Pina in P9. Can Dennis Branch maybe overtake the South African, both on the soft driver? If you haven't noticed already, the only driver currently not on the soft driver is Eduardo Radis. No surprise there. However, back to this fight, can Dennis Branch, who doesn't have a good race so far, lost 4 positions in this race already, so would probably be desperate to get by P9, the South African driver, Lille Pina.
Yeah, Lyle here in that 9th place has just gone through actually on Dennis Branch with the pass. We'll take a look at it now here, going through the Curva do Sol and on the Heta Buster over to Descida de Lago. You can see it is just a bread and butter basic DRS pass down on the inside, manages to cover off the line on the exit of the corner and then up into that 9th position for Lyle Pina. That will be a very good smile on his face. He hits the brakes and hits Descida de Lago here on lap 31 here of 71. So movement being made as we head towards the halfway stage of this race on a day where it can be a championship decided, but as it stands would head to Portimao to decide the championship with 3 rounds remaining in the season, and all about pace levels at the moment as this is a battle of lap traffic. Philip Koenhart then a lap down, trying to fend off Balázs Galliard for position. Galliard gets a good run with DRS, will look to burn the battery and go by, but Koenhart was burning that ERS deployment, that electrical kinetic energy, but Balázs Galliard with the power of the DRS didn't actually need to deploy that. The rain light was flashing, he was harvesting and still comfortably made a way through.
Interesting to see if Philip Koenhart then can make a move, but that's, like you say, Jake, very good point there about the ERS, which I even didn't realize here. But ERS a factor as well here. But see if Philip Koenhart, who just didn't have the great start, did he? At the start, was slowed down quite a lot because he had to avoid all the chaos. Balázs Galliard, if I'm not mistaken, at some point was driving without the wings, or was that another Mercedes-colored car?
I believe that was Ken Nielsen who ended up without wings.
Oh, yeah.
Galliard has tried to run his own pace out there here today. He's got the most starts in iRacing Grand Prix Tour history without a championship point. I believe the record here is 12 race starts without a point. This would be his 13th race start, I believe, and so he will need a lot of help to get up into the top 10, which is currently being spearheaded by Dennis Branch at this moment. So it will need a bit more aggressive driving to go and make that work out there on track. Do want to give a bit of credit here to the likes of Florian Kamai. Yes, he is down 2, but he's only trying to manage his own race. And when you consider this is a driver who is 5th in the championship coming into today, Florian Kamai, and he has been on a very interesting path where the last 3 rounds he's only scored 4 championship points. This is a driver who has got 4 podiums this season with a win at Sebring. This is a driver that really needs to find some confidence, and this is going to help that being in 6th today.
Oh, definitely, and especially where you can just focus on your own, because he's in no man's land, right? So he knows I'm driving pretty well here, and I can now build my rhythm. I can see how I can perform in P6 again. I can just build that confidence on his own, and I think that will do very well for Florian Kamai as well. Also, in the same boat when it comes to strategy, let's see, he has 3.4 seconds is the gap to Leopold Steneras. So maybe Steneras can close the gap to P6 he would obviously want, but it's the gap to P5 that is pretty large, 11.7 seconds So no pressure for Florian Kammeyer. Maybe the Swedish driver Steneras will have better luck, or will have luck with catching the man in P6. Did have a good qualifying though. Yes, he's doing great in the race, but had an even better qualifying, Jake, P4.
Yeah, P4 was a good qualifying for Florian Kammeyer. No real gain there for Leopold Steneros over the last 3 laps. And I find that surprising, Dan, as we take a look at the most positions gained in the bottom right corner of your screen. It is Jeffrey Lawler who is up the most, a gain of 8 over the course of this race. The big key for me is Steneros has the best tyres of anybody in this field, and he can't catch the car in front of him.
Really impressive then by the man that currently is in P6, the black and purple. Again, the German driver Florian Kammeyer. We touched upon it again. He's just doing a pretty good job. See if he can keep that up. Dennis Brans currently in P4, 4/10 behind Pinar, Lyle Pinar in the number 22 Formula 1 car. See if this can change a little bit. But so far, it seems that the field spread is just getting a little bit bigger. Again, like I touched upon again. Maybe Dennis Brans could go for an overtake. But this is exactly what I want to touch upon. These drivers now know it's the middle of the race. No point in fighting. We'll just work with each other. Maybe that way we can get one more position. P8.
Yeah,
oh no, he does go for it. Dennis Brans down the inside, thinks he's faster throughout the lap, and with the DRS he has now made the move and up to P9.
He looked like he was going to try it at turn 1, but he just got a little bit too close to make a lunge down to the inside. So having to wait for the Heta Poster to make that pass. Dennis Branch back into 9th position ahead of Lyle Pinar, and will be very happy in terms of making that move, knowing that on his first season here, he will look to go quick. He did drive a little bit in the weekly series back in the early 2020s, out there with the likes of Ben Fuller, who was dominant in that time, but doing a great job of making sure that this is going to be a season he wants to try and keep scoring points on, and is doing so quite nicely out there at this point, and critically has enough clearance into the Senna S to not be worried about the DRS, and picks up a very good run there through turn 2 and into the Curva de Sol.
Currently, the man driving in P4 as we keep up with Jeffrey Lawler and Paul O'Regan. This gap is closing down a little bit. If I'm not mistaken, Jeffrey Lawler has the DRS, but he just isn't close enough to make a move for P11. You can see Jeffrey Lawler being really quick compared to Paul O'Regan last lap. 7/10 Lawler gained on O'Regan. So what is this going to do with O'Regan? Does he now look in his rear view mirrors and thinks, all right, I've seen Jeffrey Lawler come closer and closer. If he attacks, will I let him by or will I defend? However, Lawler now in the 3rd sector of this circuit, losing quite a bit of time. So now coming into turn 12, exiting turn 12, up to the DRS zone, he just doesn't have, and even out of the DRS, I already noticed. So Jeffrey Lawler maybe has pushed a bit too much, overheated the tires, and now stuck in P12 outside of the DRS.
Yeah, it doesn't help when you miss the apex at Junsao, the junction
Very good
corner
point.
out there. So it's not going to help him in that regard, but he does have the pace. But remember, he did pit quite early to get himself a change of front wings. So that certainly has put a little bit of a dent in what he tries to do. But Paul O'Regan, car number 11, started in 11th, is in 11th right now. It's the old adage on iRacing that you've got to try and beat your number in an official race, and you'll gain iRacing and safety rating. This is a good job by Paul O'Regan, who is known as Mr. Top 10, and he's just one place out of that.
Well, he's P10 in the championship, if I'm not mistaken. Well, it's two rounds behind, of course. So, but yes, Mr. Top 10. There are the standings. Thank you so much. But yes, P10 in the standings currently for Paul O'Regan, 41 points to his name. Quite a big gap to Opara Arié. 30 points is the gap. Emil Lundell in P11, so just behind that P10, who I haven't seen this race, so definitely will lose touch with that top 10. Interesting fights. How it's oh, there goes an overtake, or is that lap car? Yes, it is. Thank you, Jake. Keep it up. Go on.
There's Jeffrey Lawler through, then on Paul O'Regan. He was waiting for that pass, and he's managed it there on the front stretch. So he's done well. You see those drivers like Emil Lundell, who's been part-time this season, Joseph Loke, who is the real-world lap record holder at Oulton Park, there in 13th position in the championship. He's not been able to break into the top 10 with one win this season. And Jorge Martinez, who has decided he hasn't got the same pace as he used to do, and now is a little bit down the order. O'Regan following diligently then through the middle sector, looking to try and get this run as they go through. And this is what you find between medium and high downforce packages when you go through. High downforce packages may be great, Dan, in terms of racing out at the front or racing in the lead of races or qualifying the car, but you need a medium downforce package to overtake, because if you can't overtake, you get stuck.
You get stuck and you'll just lose. You just lose tires, dirty air. You know the way it goes, and you need to be very conscious with the medium and the high aero package. You've done your practice laps, and you know, all right, this is what I'm going for. But as a driver, maybe it's also most important, where do I feel comfortable in? What can I do with a high downforce? What can I do with a medium downforce set? Because if you don't feel comfortable with a medium tire set, maybe you lose the rear end in practice in a couple of corners and think, I just don't have the control, the edge with that medium downforce setup. Then you're kind of forced to go with that high downforce setup and maybe sacrifice your race performance just a little bit for safety.
Second, third and fourth continue to work here in this, but the tyre looks like it has started to drop off here in this group. 13 flat from Jacob Reed on that last lap. Compare that with the 12.7 Eduardo Radice did. He's dropped 0.2 of a second, so the delta's starting to go the other way. I think Jacob Reed here is looking less at a race for a victory here today, but more rather looking behind at Volta looks at James Byrne and realising, look, I might not even get a podium out of this one. I can limit the damage to 7 points lost, that's fine. But remember, it gets a lot tougher with less points. And look at how everyone's trying to fight hard through the corner.
And this is exactly the moment where experience needs to guide you through these races, because if you don't have enough experience in racing in itself, you might start to panic. You might start to be a little bit too precise on your apex points, on your turning points, on every single millisecond you lose. Because if you're looking in the rear view mirrors and you're only watching and trying to focus, all right, I've just lost this, I've just lost how much, you need to really look forward instead of in the rear view mirror. And if you know that, if you have the experience, then experience will guide you through that. And so far, Jacob Reed is staying pretty consistent with keeping these guys behind, and the rookie James Byrne doesn't have as much experience as Jacob Reed has. See how he will get through this middle stage of the race.
Well, if you want to talk about drivers with experience, Volta Lux is possibly the most experienced driver to have never won a race out there in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Of those who are in that top group of second, third and fourth, he has sat on many occasions as a driver who's been close. He has had 8 podiums to his name in his career, 4 seconds, 4 thirds, and get this, 14 times he has finished 4th, and he would not want to make it a 15th time in 4th position, knowing he's in a scrap for 2nd, 3rd and 4th.
Oh, for sure, and see how he can do then, see if James Byrne can get that podium that he would so long for. He finished P5 in Mexico. See if he can get a podium like he had in Kota. James Byrne. All right, moving on to maybe some other drivers. We have Paul O'Regan just behind Jeffrey Lawler, can keep up with Lawler currently in this middle stage of the race. If you haven't noticed, we're more than halfway, Jake.
We absolutely are, and so this is going to be a case of start counting down, figuring out where that final stop is going to be, and I reckon we're about 5 or 6 laps away. Big wiggle over the curb though for Jacob Reed. That's a mistake through Junsao. This is the chance that Volta has been looking for to jump back up into second, but needs that DRS to go and power him through. Already harvesting on the battery, pulls over to the inside, makes the lunge, makes the move, but remember, there is the chance to get that place straight back again, and Volta realises, hang on a minute, I don't have top end speed in comparison to Jacob Reed. Look at him, he just goes and gives him a little wave out of the cockpit as he goes by. Bye-bye, I'm back in second again.
I'd love to do that. Indeed, love to give that weight visually in real life, wouldn't he? But Jacob Reed again, experience versus experience, and Jacob Reed, knowing what's next on Portimao, has done countless of laps for sure, and making the most of his racecraft, because that's where these situations all comes down to. But not faultless, Jacob Reed. See if he can now keep Walter Lux behind and not make any more mistakes, because that's what you don't want to do, obviously, because you then lose gap with the championship. James Byrne might be just grabbing his popcorn and hoping, might these drivers crash, see if I can maybe, you know, get a position up in P3 as Florian Kammeyer. I touched on it earlier in the race. Leopold Steneras can maybe get back to P6, and he's now on the back of P6 within the DRS range, and maybe Florian Kammeyer needs to look in his rearview mirror soon.
Yeah, this would be to go +2 for Leopold out there, and it would be -3 if Florian Kammeyer loses that spot. So he suddenly finds himself in a very close quarters situation, working down through the Center S and in through the Curva do Sol, and now onto the Heta Posta on a circuit that used to be a lot longer than it is now at the moment. They used a lot more of this track, and it folded in and around on itself and was very maze-like at over 7 kilometers in the 1970s and the 80s, but now into this area of circuit that we all know and love in its traditional guise now. And so for the moment, it's a case of Kammeyer holds himself steady. This is what we call a very interesting racetrack to go and race at, because this is one of the most known properties for sim racing drivers out there, because everyone loves Interlagos.
Everyone loves Interlagos, but just imagine Interlagos with rain, especially at a race like this. Imagine it would absolutely downpour right now, because, well, rain isn't unknown at Interlagos, which I just find Interlagos one of the best tracks to race in the rain. And there goes Florian Kammeyer. He led the man in P6, Steneras, currently by the Swedish driver that was P7 a lap ago, now P6, and this is beautiful to see. Florian Kammeyer knows I'm not as fast as Leopold Steneras, so instead of just fighting, losing time with Steneras, I'm going to give him the position, pick up DRS, see if I can keep up, get that safe P7 that Florian Kammeyer needs for his confidence.
Yep, so Florian down to 7th, but definitely not out of racing contention as far as this goes. Dennis Branch is back through on Lyle Pinar then, so that changes about, and there is Jeffrey Lawler and Paul O'Regan in the back, but just 2 seconds behind at this moment. So they are going to have to get a bit of a wiggle on here if they want to go and make this race theirs, because they know that it takes only a couple laps of undercut, and someone like Jeffrey Lawler can get back into position here. Lap 46 of 71, it would leave just 25 laps to go, and Alex Hagland is the first of those to come in with that final stop looming.
Oh, strategy is getting in play again, and see how it will work out for Alex Hagland, currently P6 in the championship, and then wants to make the most of his current championship and his current race. See if Hagland, 4 seconds is his pit stop time, if he can make use of the undercut, which he is currently making use of.
No, I don't think he's done this very well because he's come out directly behind Leopold Steneros and Florian Kammerer, so he's going to have to make passes on track here.
Oh yeah, that's something you don't want to see. And normally, oh, there goes Florian Kammerer. Let Alex Hagland by. Yeah, that's going to be huge for the man currently in P6. Now he only has to get by Leopold Steneras, but will Steneras get by him? Who knows? But Hagland now with dirty air from Steneras, obviously, but this in normal, Formula 1, you'd have an engineer. So you have to calculate, Alex Hagland needs to calculate this all by himself. Where do I come out? And sometimes you just get it wrong.
Yeah, so he's had a bit of help for one, but he's got his Swedish compatriot in front of Steneros that he's trying to get by as Philip Kuhnhardt is down into the pits. I will say Alex Hagland has really come on leaps and bounds this season. He was a driver that was maybe just going to be a contender for points. He crashed out 4 of the first 5 races, and then he runs wide, and so that will open up the door if Kammerer wants to go back through, but I think he's going to lift off and think better of it. Alex Hagland realising, I've got to push if I'm going to catch those drivers of Byrne and Lux and Jacob Reed, so he's looking to try and make a big pull of it. Reagan Branch and Pienaar all in at the same time. They're going to hang Jeffrey Lawler out there.
Oh, for sure. And with these mistakes, you need to be careful with the off tracks. You can only get X amount of off tracks, and if you get too much off tracks, Alex Hagland just struggling with that car. Maybe it's the new tires. He is in. James Burns is in. P4. All right, what's going to happen here then?
So, Eduardo Rodis leads pit. Soft tyres then to the end. No surprises on that. James Byrne gets on the jack. So to the lap down Mark van Dalen. And it will be a case of soft tyres all the way home. So this is perfect. It's been the perfect race so far from Eduardo Rodis, but he knows that Jacob Reed is still out there, that Volta Lux is still out there, and again, I would argue James Byrne has made this decision to come in slightly earlier than his rivals to get by them both.
Jacob Reed currently in P1, Walter Lux currently in P2. You need to make, and you have the surprise effect when you're James Byrne as well. He can make the surprise move. All right, I'll go in first. If Jacob Reed goes in first, they can all follow, and everything stays the same in the situation as it is. But James Byrne read the situation well and thought, I'm gonna go for it. Maybe I can overtake both, and both are reacting because Reed comes in and Lux comes in now as well.
Volta Lux was so early on the line there for commitment. I think he's given up about a second there by the way he's tried to go through. Eduardo Rodis re-inherits the race lead, so he won't lead every lap of this race, but he certainly will take one there that will go away to Jacob Reed as they cross. Reed leaves the pits, but look at James Byrne. He's working his way through turn 1 and turn 2. This is going to be a fight now for the exit. This is going to be really close on the rejoin. He'll get Volta Lux, but he won't get Jacob Reed, who's up to speed immediately here into the skid of the Interlagos. James Byrne now is in prime position to battle to get back into P2. Will he charge up the hill and get the run up to Ferradura? Thinks about a look to the inside, jinks for it, but doesn't see it.
James Byrne, the man of the strategy here in Brazil, and now has the advantage of the warm tyres. Jacob Reed has the cold tyres, and now Reed looking in his mirror, if I need to keep this position for my championship. But James Byrne is having none of it because he wants to overtake Walter Lux in the championship, has the DRS upcoming corner. Jacob Reed maybe that ERS, huge moment for Byrne there. Now maybe Walter Lux can overtake Byrne.
Goodness me, that could have been the race gone there in that one spin. Volta Lux pulls up alongside and looks for a move as Eduardo Rodis sets the fastest lap, but Byrne is later on the brakes, chucks it into the corner and says, no, that's my apex, and you will stay in your favourite place of them all, P4 Volta, as he now tries to work himself into play. 22 laps to go, and James Byrne now realises he's in a bit of a dogfight here, and he's got to try and get by the Worcesterman, Jacob Reed.
No doubt James Byrne has burnt a lot of ERS after that bad exit. You have to if you lose momentum on that exit. So see if he now can overtake Jacob Reed. I doubt it. The gap is 5/4. The tires of Jacob Reed are slowly starting to come alive, but we'll see what happens soon in the future. Almost 20 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Paul O'Regan in P12. Can he overtake Pinar, the South African, who's currently driving in P11? Only 2/10 between them, 3/10 between them now coming out of the Senna S. Let's see what is going to happen in this DRS zone. The rear flap of P12 opens up now, pulling to the side, pulling to the inside, and he will make that move stick. If he doesn't outbrake himself, maybe Pinar goes for the switchback. No, he doesn't. So it's a position gained for the Englishman. Currently, Pinar having a little bit of a look. Paul O'Regan just taking the defensive line there, making sure he stays in P11. Leopold Stederas, the Swedish driver in pit lane, Jake.
Yep, so he's making his final stop then of the race, and so he'll be looking around and saying, what can he do? I look as well to Lyle Pinar. He's only ever scored one SimSpeed Championship point, and you have to go all the way back to Aragon last year to pick up that point. So he hasn't scored a championship point as Lyle Pinar in well over 14 months of sim racing. So that is going to be a weight worth its weight in gold if you can go and find it. And Mark van Dalen here has got a black flag next to his name, and that will be for hitting the 17-point incident point limit. So he'll have to come through for a drive-through penalty.
Interesting. It's so easy. Well, not. It's interesting. So easy to get a track limit. You have the white line. Sometimes iRacing can be a bit more forgivable. Is this? Yes, this is the one where it happened. Just cut too much off the track. Oh no, it's a spin. It's a spin actually, and I think he got a loss of control. So that's a 2x for Mark van Dalen, and I think that's why he got the drive-through. I think it's a drive-through.
Yeah, it is a drive-through. You can see here, it's a short drive-through around here, 13.4 seconds on lane transit going through, so not the end of the world there for Mark. And there goes James Byrne down the inside of Esse. Can he go around the outside of the Pinarino? Oh, at the Pine Tree corner. He's got the inside for Bico de Pato up the hill, and now looking to command the apex. Jacob Reed doesn't have anything for that. Wonderfully constructed the pass. It came out of relative nowhere, and the difference of downforce packages strike again between them. And now this is where Jacob Reed needs to run rear limited as he tries to get on the power, and he's known as Jacob Reed for burning the tyres up early, so he needs to be very clever on how he gets this past. But look at the overspeed difference. 315 meets 280. 35 kilometers an hour difference on the straight. That is F1 versus F2 standards.
Wow, that's utilizing your ERS management to the fullest. I touched on it again. James Byrne had that bad exit, had to burn up his ERS, and I think that's what we've just saw. Jacob Reed making the most of his management, but James Byrne is oh so close through the tire, through the corners. Jacob Reed just doesn't seem to have the tire grip he had all race long, and yes, he has got the position back just now. But James Byrne is still within 4/10, still within 3/10 of a second, and we will replay last lap probably all over again.
Well, it's not going to be a case this time of James Byrne getting the run that he wants. He's shown his hand, and now he knows I can't outright run away from Jacob Reed. He's got a car that's too slippery on the straight, so he's going to have to be tactical about how and where he goes through and where he looks to surprise for that pass. So I think Jacob Reed now is going to realise I'm going to have to be a bit more defensive out there if I want to hold that P2. Out there at the moment on the brakes, then into the center S once again. No real chances of a move then to be had, so James Byrne can calm down and they can settle and they can start scheming once again.
All are saving ERS currently. None are fighting, like you say, Jake. So now this is a collective saying to each other, all right, let's calm down here. Let's make the most of these last couple of laps and then we can start to fight. But fighting with P1 for Jacob Reed, unless the man in P1, Eduardo Radiz, makes a mistake, he's currently 12 seconds in front, dominantly driving away, dominantly in the lead. But can these guys, a fantastic fight for P2, P3, P4, maybe attack each other this lap? The gap seems to be a little bit too big as Pinar overtakes O'Regan for P11.
Yeah, they both lost contact to Dennis Branch and Jeffrey Lawler, who are 10th and 9th, but that is a good move there for Lyle Pinar. He can now set his sights on that SimSpeed Championship point in 10th, which Jeffrey Lawler and Dennis Branch, the pair of them, have in lockstep at the moment. Jacob Reed still looking behind, and the pace they're having to do, they're doing 11.9s out there at the moment. Voltalux is struggling to stay with this pace at 0.7 of a second off the back, and if he gets dropped from it, he knows he is in the doldrums. By comparison, it's 8 seconds back to Alex Hagland in 5th, and Lux might be resigning his fate to 4th here, and that gives James Byrne a lot more confidence out there, because he doesn't have to worry about going for a move and then losing a place. He can just start having a little nibble here, a little nibble there, saying, where's the structural weakness on Jacob Reed's driving?
Voltalux wants to keep that P3 in the overall standings, but right now it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen for Voltalux. After this round, Jeffrey Lawler just got didn't got overtaken, did make an overtake on P10. Dennis Branch, the driver from the United States, now dropped down to P10. Lawler gaining 8 places in this race. Dennis Branch has lost 4 so far, but Lawler, absolutely amazing race for the United States driver as well.
Ruling the roost like it's Memphis at this stage for Jeffrey Lawler. Dennis Branch there in P10 looking around at it, and again it's close here from James Byrne, but this is the sector where he's got that ability to cut through, where Jacob Reed doesn't here. Through Ferradura here then, this long right-hander, sometimes known as Orange Corner, Laranjinha is there as well, but as they hit SA here, this right, that's where I think Jacob Reed's going to have to be defensive in the final stages of this race. James Byrne will be looking at that corner as a place he can steal it away. He can't win this one on a drag race, but in a case of having DRS, he's only 7Ks quicker on a straight, so he's not going to get it done on the straights. He's going to need the corners to be the place where he gets it done, so this is going to have to be unconventional from James Byrne if he wants to get this pass, as we now tick over to 15 laps to go here in Interlagos.
And if you want a track where you can overtake in corners, well, Interlagos is the track to make a move in corners. See if James Byrne then can utilize these corners, utilize this DRS zone. Seems to be a bit too far off, but a lunge down into T4 isn't too far away, but the braking zone isn't the heaviest on the circuit, so that's just too much of a gap going into turn 6 now. He doesn't have the speed, he doesn't seem to gain a lot of momentum through turn 5 to turn 6. Slipstream not doing enough, but again, like Jake said, his corner work needs to be good, needs to be great, needs to be maybe perfect to make a move in the upcoming laps, but so far just doesn't have, it just isn't close enough to the rear wing of Jacob Reed to go for a move.
Wants to be exceptional out here and finding that pass that gets him that second place, those 18 championship points. He knows that he wants to give himself a gap to Voltalux behind, who will be scoring 12 at the moment. James Byrne will gain 3 championship points out there. He would extend his lead to 5 points in 3rd place in the championship as it stands, but he'd love that 5 points to actually be 8 if he can get this move done, and that gives him a little bit more of a buffer as Paul O'Regan back through on Lyle Pinar and the scrap level, best just outside the points in 11th. Again, he shuffles down in at a couple tenths of a second. This time he looks close enough to make a move as they head up then through Ferradura once again. And now is there going to be a lunge to the inside? There is a big throw down the inside. Jacob Reed gives him just enough room, wiggle in the middle of the corner, couldn't turn in that much. They'll fight off the exit again to the Pico de Pato, up over the top of the crest, now back down the hill. Volta looks to try and find a way through. No chance at Megullo.
Oh, the respect between these drivers is fantastic. What a fight these guys are putting up, and Walter Lux now has thrown away his popcorn because he is in the fight for the podium once again. But look, oh, he goes just compared to Jacob Reed, he's standing still, James Byrne, and compared to Walter Lux as well.
Has he used all his energy burn to try and get that pass, and then because he's used up all of his battery on overtake mode, he's got to then find a way to charge it. They're only allowed 4 deployment changes per lap, and Volta Lux just absolutely makes an ease in terms of making that pass. So now it's Lux's turn to get back at Jacob Reed.
Dropping like a stone, James Byrne, but this, ladies and gentlemen, is the experience you need with just management in general. Jacob Reed, Walter Lux, they knew, alright, James Byrne is just depleting ERS, let him overtake me, and now James Byrne, well, he depleted too much ERS and now finds himself in P4. Walter Lux is smiling again, he has just overtaken James Byrne in the general standings for P3. If it stays like this, it's going to be right down the wire for P3 and P4 in the championship as well, and maybe for P1 as well. But currently Eduardo Radis extending his championship lead if it stays like this, but Jacob Reed keeping him in touch with the possibility of clinching this championship. Everyone opening their rear wing flaps, DRS enabled still for everyone except for the man that is in front of this group, leading this group in P2, Jacob Reed.
Yep, so for the moment, the championship would go to Portimao in the south of Portugal. So that's how it will stack up at this stage. Just 12 laps remaining here and 11 and a half as they run up through Ferradura. And Volta Lux is there, and now it sets up to be interesting here for 6th and 7th because Florian Kameyer has quietly worked to get to the rear of Leopold Steneros here, and this P6 is going to be an important confidence booster for whoever gets this one sorted. And Kameyer, just looking at the downforce packages, is on medium downforce, so too is Leopold Steneros, so this is just a battle of who's got it better.
Mark van Dalen lapped just behind it, the Dutch driver who did have a great race at the start, but then a similar incident happened to the Leclerc-Vettel incident, and now finding himself in P14. But yes, Florian Kameyer, impressive, because he let Steneros go. I think in the impression, alright, you are faster than me, go and see if you can maybe get closer to P5. But Florian Kameyer now just slowly getting back to Leopold Steneros, maybe has managed his tyres a little bit better than Steneros and the German driver in P7, making the most of it. I think he does have DRS, so this is the chance for the German driver in the upcoming laps to get that P6 back and get an even higher confidence boost.
Well, if he wants that confidence boost, if he wants to jump up and keep himself in touch with Volta Lux and James Byrne, who are 3rd and 4th and trying to battle it out strongly today, he's going to need to take every point he can get his hands on, and he is the epitome, Florian Kameyer, of someone who has come through the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour, who has tried to build up his resume, who's tried to get better, has 2 wins to his name in this series, but he's someone who needs to find that little extra something to go to the next level. I keep my eye on James Byrne because he might have a lunge now into turn 1 on the back of Volta Lux, and he doesn't quite have the angle to go and make it happen here. So this is where you're going to have to be very clever about this move, because if they start thinking about each other, Jacob Reed's just going to run away.
He most definitely is, and he's hoping that it will happen. But currently, James Byrne thinking the better of it, staying behind Walter Lux, thinking the big picture here, and also saving his ERS. Maybe he has learned from, well, we can't really call it a mistake, but his decision before to overtake these two drivers with all the ERS he had, but then he just lost it all because he had no ERS. What an performance difference you can have with managing your ERS. Now back to the racing then. James Byrne 2/10 behind the car of Walter Lux, but also you need to keep in mind Walter Lux, he is the one that's currently losing touch with Jacob Fried. 4/10 it is, 6/10 it was approaching turn 12, so he's got the gap back up. But now the chance for James Byrne, maybe.
Full deploy on for James Byrne and for Walter Lux as they were both trying to mark each other out of a move into the Centre S with just 9 laps to go here around this wonderful circuit. Very heavy over the inside curve, the old school curves here at Interlagos. You can attack them here and you don't have as much worry as some of the sawtooth curves that you find at more modern racetracks. Through to Interlagos, off of the exit once again, but because it's going to be a very similar scrap between these two in terms of setup, you're not really going to see that move now. Heading through Ferradura and up into SA Corner. Again, not quite enough. All the way, all 4 tyres over the curb trying to get this run, but James Byrne now just needs to keep himself calm and realise he will have opportunities, and on the pace he has shown in the second half of this season, next year he might be a title contender.
Coming into Magulora, and as fast as you enter that corner, you exit the corner. Mark van Dalen, repairs required, has a meatball flag. Something's happened to the Dutch driver.
Yeah, he's had a spin coming through the centre. That will do it. So this will be, I would say, a rage quit of sorts. And he's right next to the ambulance, so he can jump straight into that. But he's had a spin. Tough day at the office for him. And so he will call that a retirement in dramatic fashion and saying, that will do for me. Byrne through, though, up to 3rd place on Walter Lux, and he needed to make that happen and needed to make it happen quick, and he got it done at turn 1 using the DRS, getting alongside and throwing it back up the inside again.
Oh, well, the Austrian driver now wanting to get back that P3. I'm sure he wants to, because, well, if we end this race like this, James Byrne is ahead of him in the championship, if I'm not mistaken. But James Byrne, don't forget, there is fire within the man. Yes, indeed, James Byrne currently in P3. There's fire within that man, because he started on pole position. He has dropped down 2 places, so he's currently in P3. Lost the race victory to, well, a man that's currently just driving dominantly away. So I'm not surprised James Byrne is doing everything he can to get that P2 and also to increase his championship lead over, well, the championship lead compared to Walter Lux in P4. But so far, James Byrne stable in P3, this whole group stable in their positions with 6 laps to go.
So keep counting them, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, lap 70, and the all-important lap 71 remains in this race, and James Byrne knows that he's got to first get to the rear again of Jacob Reed and then figure out where he's going to get this move done. There's still the question to be had of what will happen 6th and 7th, and there is still a little question mark now on what will happen for 10th and 9th, because Eduardo Radice has just caught the back of Dennis Branch and Jeffrey Lawler, so he'll be looking to get by both of them, and that's a chance for Dennis Branch to go through. And they don't run with the Formula style blue flag system here. They run the IMSA style blue flag system, which means you don't actually have to get out of the way of the race leader. They are advisory blue flags only.
That's going to be really interesting, but right now it seems that Dennis Branch is already overtaken the man that he needed to lap, and so he can continue with pushing on towards Jeffrey Lawler, currently in P9. Dennis Branch lost, well, I hear he's still in between. I can see the blue car indeed just behind and the yellow car in between. So like you said, Jake, this will get really tough for Dennis Branch if he can't overtake that yellow car in the middle real soon. It's Eduardo Radic, actually, it's just the leader.
Yep, so he's trying to get by Jeffrey Lawler. Jeffrey's not going to let him go through because he knows that he wants absolutely nothing of Dennis Branch to come by at the same time. So basically Eduardo Radic is going to have to make a pass on the 9th place driver out there at the moment. Not part of his game plan, but unfortunately the plan he'll have to go to at this moment. He has 2 massive bursts of DRS go and help him, and this will close him up then along this main straight. He won't get close enough to make the move, hits the brakes, tries to figure out, can I get this run? You can see right up underneath the rear diffuser, looking to try and get this clearance sorted, and now he can use this second area to go and get this move. The thanks then given over the radio by Eduardo as Jeffrey Lawler then pulls into line. That's some very clever driving by Jeffrey Lawler and some good patient driving by your race and championship leader.
Say he doesn't have to, does he? He doesn't have to take risk because, well, you just shouldn't take risk when you are 13 seconds. Oh wow!
Side by side up to Ferradura, looking down the inside, takes it away from Jacob Reed. He went around the outside of the Interlagos to get it done.
James Byrne in P2, it's exactly what the man from the United States need, and now Jacob Reed is going to look in his rear view mirrors because Walter Lux only 3/10 behind, and he needs to desperately keep in the DRS range. 9/10 it is. If he hasn't depleted all his ERS, James Byrne, then he might get out of the DRS zone. James Byrne coming down towards the finish line and already recharging. And look at Jacob Reed. I think indeed, oh, look at the speed Jacob Reed can carry compared to James Byrne. Down, start, finish, and not in front of him though, but now Jacob Reed does have the DRS, so we have seen this still a few laps ago, but now the outside for Jacob Reed, but he's already passed. The man gets back to P2.
He does, but he doesn't have much of a gap. 278 versus 313 on the straight. It's like watching 2 different categories out there with the closing speed, but this is what James Byrne has signed himself up for, to make it very difficult for him to make that move. They've got Lyle Pinar in front in the form of lap traffic, so that might be the pick that is needed as they will soon look at 3 laps to go here at Interlagos, and James Byrne is going to have to roll the dice again to get through what has been an absolute pressure cooker of a podium battle.
It's going to kick off in these last couple of laps, and James Burns knows it. Walter Lux has fallen back just a little bit, but now grabbing his popcorn, maybe praying something will happen between these 2 drivers as a lapped car is now appearing in front of them. So this might get spicy with that lapped car not too far out of reach, Jake.
It's not, but the question will be if Jacob Reed picks up DRS. That's the biggest disaster there. No DRS flap opens, and James Byrne again closes down in on the brakes and tries to figure out, can I take this second position away? And the answer's no. They'll climb up Ferradura once again, so James will now have to sit back on Jacob Reed and realise that, okay, it's probably not going to happen this lap, but if Jacob Reed's very clever about this, he's going to wait all the way to Mehuyo and look to try and pick up a bit of slipstream. Wide goes Lyle Pinar, and so that's not going to work out. So he's not going to get what he needs, which was a bit of toe to give him the runaway that he needed. So now James Byrne sits right up underneath here, heading into Junsao, the junction, and now here comes the launch up the hill.
this is the moment for James Byrne. He's tried it and he's longed it for so many laps, that P2, and now we have 2 laps to go because they come across the line. ERS deployed for James Byrne, but he waits just for this corner, so maybe he can overtake out of turn 3 into the DRS zone to turn 4. Look at the wiggle of the car that's being driven by Jacob Reed, but no, James Byrne just doesn't have an answer coming into turn 4. He is waiting for the last opportunity, for the safest opportunity to overtake Jacob Reed, and that is in the very last lap.
He's pulling with a lot of intensity here to try and make this move. Who would you rather be in this situation, Dan? Would you rather be Jacob or James?
Oh, for sure, Jacob. You can, for sure, James Byrne. You can time your move. You can just strategically, you have the advantage if you are James Byrne. So I'd love to be James Byrne.
Well, it's now 1 lap left in this race for Eduardo Rodis as Jeffrey Lawler still staves off for the final Simspeed Championship point. Dennis Branch, they're in 10th position. There's battles on for 6th and 7th places, and then this one coming up over the crest. Where does James Byrne look to make this move? He'll throw it at turn 1, down the inside of Jacob Reed, who gives him all the space in the world because he knows he's going to need all of that ability to fight back on the Reta Posta. And now here comes the chance, because here he comes straight back like a bullet train. Bye-bye, he gets it done. But now here comes the switch back. James Byrne with a great run through the middle of the corner, and Jacob Reed now on the inside of Ferradura. They're going to have to go side by side through here. Now here's where the superior grip comes into play. James Byrne, oh my goodness, he'll have to go around the outside of this one as well. Has the inside over at the Mejulio corner coming up soon. He gets in the Pinarino. Can he get the clearance? Yes, but Jacob Reed chucks it back up the inside. Just enough room given between them, and they're doing everything they can. Confidence is peaking then as we take a look at a champion's drive. Surely a hand on the title now for Eduardo Rodis, who wins this one, but it's all about the run up the hill and who's got enough. Jacob Reed is hunting this down. He's going to get the launch. He's going to steal second. Volta Lux is going to come to the line. Drag race, he's going to steal third, and he's got 1 point in the championship now in P3. Oh my word.
Oh my words, what a finish, what a race we've had here, what a finish at Interlagos. But who will be the winner from P6 and P7? Florian Kammeyer, has he saved his ERS? Can he deploy everything and maybe get P6 on the line? But surely StatRS has saved some ERS as well. You can see Florian Kammeyer coming a little bit closer, but it isn't enough. So the Swedish driver takes P6, and the German driver Florian Kammeyer can use this to build upon his confidence for the next race. Good fight between these 2 drivers, and now waiting for P8, who is 17 seconds behind.
Edward Apariari will be the last one over the line, and he does so just now, so we can now confirm the classified results then from today's racing here at Interlagos, and simply a champion's drive from Eduardo Rodis at the place where he took his maiden win in the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour. He will now put himself on the cusp of a world title ahead of Jacob Reed, 14 seconds better off today on an alternative strategy where Volta Lux can only take 3rd place as he steals it from James Byrne on the final few 100 meters. James Byrne with that 4th will finish ahead of Alex Hagland and Leopold Staneros, the Swedes, 5th and 6th, with Florian Kammeyer in 7th and Edward Apariari, your last finisher, on the lead lap in 8th place. Jeffrey Lawler and Dennis Branch will be 9th and 10th, as it will be over the page to 11th. Paul O'Regan just missing out on championship points for the 3rd straight week, as Lyle Pinar and Balazs Gallia are 12th and 13th. Philip Kunhardt is your last finisher in this race, as Mark van Dalen will mark the first of the retirees, as Michel Rudeau, Sebastian Rekov, Brad Newman and Kent Nielsen would all fail to find a finish here today. But a wonderful set of races there done to just get itself sorted. And the mark of a race here at Interlagos is it's never over until you cross that finish line.
It's never over when it's really over, is it? When what a race I have just witnessed on my debut here, as Eddie Andrade is now leading the championship, has extended his championship lead 382 points. Behind that is Jacob Reed. It's still in reach for the man in P2 in the championship. What a luck in P3. James Byrne just in P4, 1 point between P3 and P4 in the general standings, and maybe, just maybe, Florian Kammeier has something to say about that P3 as well.
Yep, he'll definitely want to jump up, but he's going to need a bit of help to get there over the remaining 3 rounds of the season. Alex Hagland moves up ahead of Emil Bernstorff, and Paul O'Regan maintains that top 10 with Edward Apariari 30 points clear of him in the championship. Kent Nielsen couldn't jump into the top 10 today with his retirement from the race. Jeffrey Lawler picks up a couple points as well to move him more comfortably into the top 20. You look back there, Dennis Branch now jumps ahead of Mark van Dalen with that 10th place finish, and Leopold Steneros, believe it or not, picks up his first points of the season with that 6th place finish, so that will jump him up into the top 30. Lyle Pinar is best of those who have yet to score a championship point this season, with drivers like William Chadwick there in 31st, incredibly quick driver. You look down the list, drivers like Lucas Prada, for example, hasn't scored a point. Guillaume Darunia hasn't scored a point yet in this championship. Nikolai Rogovu not with a point. Michel Rudeau failing to find one. And then you're looking down the likes of Gabriel Bouclier, Roberto Fire and Vincenzo Peron not with points, neither. Leandro Gabrielson there, and Philip Kunhardt part of the list there of 79 championship drivers this season who have not been able to who have gone through this season, but over half of them unable to score a point as it stands. But the championship now has to roll on here, Dan. It will roll on in just 2 weeks' time at the Autodromo Internacional do Algarve, which, when it comes to this race, is pretty much the role reversal. Jacob Reed must win, and it must be a P6 or lower for Eduardo Radice to take the title even further.
Oh, but what a track as well. I mean, Brazil is such a great track, Interlagos, I mean, but this track could absolutely turn everything on its head. So many overtaking opportunities. Tire management is going to be, well, such a key factor. And, well, again, the championship might be able to get turned around.
It may do, and the only place you can catch it is with us on SimSpeed TV. So if you haven't had the chance already, wherever you're watching, be it Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Kick, wherever you're finding us, like, share, subscribe, do all the great YouTube things, all the great, wonderful internet things to get yourself to see more amazing racing. From the entire team that has brought this show to you here today, from Daniel Yeaman, Dan von Zutphen, and myself, Jake Sperry, drivers are judged on what makes them a champion. You talk about drives that make the epitome of a driver. You stand up against the grain, make a different championship decision, and it gives you all of the position to then go and work and say, look, I am going to be head and shoulders above every other driver here today. Eduardo Radice blew them away. His 10th win of the season at the place where he got his first ever win, and it might be the sweetest win he has had in the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour. He is just on the cusp of picking up his first world title, and the 2-time world champion Jacob Reed knows he can only sit and watch at this point. He can only do his best. And now it's all about fate. And that fate will turn to 2 weeks' time when we head down to the south of Portugal, to the Internacional do Algarve. And that may be the place where a champion may be crowned.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser-scanned replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.